This is where we live, right across the road from Salt Spring State Park in Montrose, Pennsylvania. We've raised 4 pretty nice kids here. The jury's still out on the dogs. We're also blessed to have our granddaughter near. And my father-in-law lives right across the driveway. His family has owned this land for over 100 years. We're all happy and healthy. Not a lot of drama. At least not until a few months ago. We were just watching TV, a documentary called Gasland, and it showed some pretty scary things. Some things I'd never seen before, and then others I'd heard about, like sink water catching on fire. The kids were pretty upset. That film said all these problems were caused by natural gas. You see, we felt blessed just a little while ago when they found natural gas on our property. We could have as many as 10 wells, they said. But this little movie, it could change everything.
Is our water going to catch on fire?
We've taught our kids by example to tell the truth. So when we saw Gasland, I knew I owed them real, honest answers. If the real answers were scary, then so be it. At least we'd know what we were up against, like the burning water business. Everyone around here knows that it's a natural thing. It's been going on for generations, since long before anyone drilled for natural gas.
Yeah, I remember years ago taking a match, lighting it, and throwing it on one of my dad's ponds, and it would light. And that was long before fracking.
Somebody told me that even across the road at Salt Springs, they could capture and light the methane that bubbles up naturally. So I thought I'd give it a try. Looks like the flaming faucet that Josh showed might be a bit misleading. So, what was the truth? The real truth? That's how we came to make this little movie. As it turns out, ours is about a New York filmmaker and some very misleading so-called facts. We decided to call it TRUTHLAND. They've already drilled 1 well on our land, and we have crops and cows there too. Not to mention our kids, granddaughter, and dogs. So when we saw the documentary with the faucets catching fire, the animals hurt and the people sick, it was rather scary. Then again, scary movies aren't necessarily true.
Can I wash my ears in the water? Am I allowed to?
I'm thinking, if you've got questions, how else are you going to get them answered unless you go and find out?
Where are you going to go?
Who are you going to talk to? Who really knows?
I'd never spent much time away from the farm, but getting the truth on our safety and livelihood seemed like it was well worth it. Guess it was time to fire up the Chevy for a road trip. I'm a school teacher, so I like lists. Our first list was the questions we wanted answered.
So, what chemicals are used?
That's a good question.
I washed the baby in that water, so I'm kind of curious.
This is safe for bathing, especially babies.
Do these oil companies really not follow the laws?
Do the companies follow the laws?
And about the flaming water?
Oh yeah, flaming water.
How's it going to affect the farm with the cows and the crops?
Effects on livestock and crops. Great. Any others?
Shell, is a well construction strong enough to keep our water safe?
Good question. Is the well strong enough? Hope all these experts aren't too fancy. I'm just bringing jeans. Have fun milking. It's so beautiful around here. I really want my grandchildren to be able to play in these ponds and rivers and creeks and to enjoy our natural resources. So if what Gasland said is true, I really wanted to know. I started with the biggest question. Is the U.S. natural gas industry good or bad? I'd seen one man on TV a lot, John Hanger. He'd even been in the movie Gasland. Up until just a little while ago, he was the secretary of the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. He seemed like a really smart man, so I went to his office. Until recently, you were the one in charge of keeping the Pennsylvania environment clean. My family and I have a dairy farm in Susquehanna County, and we watched the Gasland movie. And should we have some concerns about this natural gas stuff?
Well, the Gasland movie is misleading. It has a mission. The mission is to shut down the gas industry. It's very effective at stirring fears. The truth about gas drilling is much more complicated and complex than what was presented in Gasland. Josh Fox and others say the frac fluids, when they go down the hole, come back up and then contaminate people's water wells. That's not the case. We've never had one case of frac fluids going down the gas well, coming back up and contaminating somebody's water well. This is an industrial process. It does need to be properly regulated, indeed strongly regulated, in order to assure safety for those who do host it on their land. And the truth is that gas itself is a much cleaner burning fuel than coal or oil, which are our two main alternatives. I'm not going to suggest to anybody here that gas is perfect. It's not perfect, but we don't have a perfect fuel option. You can't do any industrial process and have zero impact on the environment. If that's the standard, there's going to be no coal, no oil, no natural gas, and no wind, no solar, nothing.
Boy, that helped clear up a lot. And he was in charge of protecting the environment. I breathed a little easier about the wells on our farm. While I was near Philly, I also talked to Dr. Joseph Martin. He's a professor of engineering at Drexel University. People really respect what he says. My family and I, we watched the Gasland movie, and according to that, natural gas drilling is going to destroy our water supply.
If people are detecting methane in their well, there are a number of sources right on their own property, right under their property, within either on the surface or within 100 feet or so. The question is material migrating from the natural gas well over to that domestic well? Nobody wants to have the methane leave the pipe. The pipe, it comes up the pipe, it is marketed, it is sold, money flows to the energy company, money flows back to the landowner. So nobody is in any way, shape, or manner motivated to pollute the neighbor's well.
How does natural gas drilling compare to like coal mining? What is the effect on the environment?
The surface impact of this hydrofracking is phenomenally lower than anything you could do. Well, strip mining, of course, takes the entire piece of land we have. So as far as the impact on the surface of the ground, you can't beat it. There's just nothing like it. We have a standard of living. I don't think anybody's really proposed we drop it. And the standard of living was developed long, long ago of central heat. Nobody's come up with a more efficient and non-polluting way to do that than burning natural gas in a little gas furnace in your basement.
So as far as safety issues of natural gas drilling, they're minimal?
They're minimal. They're at a the risk is for a very short window when they're drilling, and it's under incredible intense scrutiny and tight regulations. So just basically enforce the regulations, control where the water's going, control the runoff, and in a few weeks you close it in, you hydroseed it, and you get the forest back.
Fracking. A year ago, I'm not sure I'd ever heard the word. Now it's about all I ever hear. I'm not an engineer, a scientist, or a gas driller. Well, neither is the guy who made Gasland. He lives in New York City and makes movies for a living. I'm just a Pennsylvania mom. I needed to talk to an expert, and everyone led me to the one who first recognized this whole shale business in Pennsylvania. Penn State Professor of Geoscience, Terry Engelder. What is this fracking? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, it's a process by which the rock is split so that gas can flow to the surface. Basically, what we think of is that when enough pressure is applied to any internal cavity, the cavity will split, and basically rock splits that way.
Now, I've heard when they do the fracturing, they use some chemicals in there. What can you tell me about these chemicals?
Well, the water is the primary substance that causes rock to break apart. But in order to get water down in the well fast enough, one of the additives in the water is called a friction reducer. That basically is nothing more than household dish detergent.
Have you seen the movie Gasland? And if so, what is your opinion of it?
I have seen Gasland, and the flaw is that there's a tremendous amount of innuendo in the movie. The innuendo, of course, is that all of these problems that you see filmed in that movie are a direct result of the gas industry, and in particular hydraulic fracturing. By innuendo, the most famous scene, of course, is a scene at the end of the movie where this guy in northeastern Colorado lights his faucet, and the Colorado Department of Environmental and Conservation has stated just over and over again, this is biogenic methane, that it's unlikely that this has much to do with the gas industry.
Do you have any idea about how many wells have been fractured in the U.S.?
Well, the industry says that the number is somewhere between 1 million and 2 million wells in the United States.
I take it there's been relatively few problems with these 1 million to 2 million wells with the fracturing?
The fracturing itself is a process that occurs deep enough in the earth that a Groundwater Protection Council study in 2009 reported no problems over the last 60 years with frac fluid migrating from the reservoir into groundwater.
Scientific credentials. I believe him a lot more than I'd believe some New York filmmaker. I wasn't so sure about him saying the chemicals used in fracking were just like dish detergent, so I made a mental note to check that out later, just to be sure. Before I headed south, I thought it might be interesting to get the perspective of the people who rely on natural gas for their livelihood. So I picked a big one, U.S. Steel.
Back in 2009, we were both laid off. Things around the area really slowed down. But toward the end of 2009, we got our jobs back because of the natural gas boom. It created our jobs back plus a lot more.
Yeah, this whole place runs off natural gas.
So responsible natural gas drilling is good for everybody. They buy your pipe and you buy their gas.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
On the internet, I found a man named Gary Hansen. He's with the Red River Watershed Management Institute. It was all the way down in Shreveport, Louisiana, part of their university system. They'd been hydrofracking there for decades and studying water pollution issues for a long, long time. I might as well talk to the best.
It's literally impossible to frack up into a groundwater zone. The U.S. Department of Energy did studies back in the 1980s out west where they drill wells down vertically, horizontally, frack them with dye, and then they mine back into those wells to determine how fracking occurs. And one of the most important things they determined was that as you get shallower and shallower, the fracking starts dying out. At great depths, the frack goes vertically and horizontally, but as you come shallower and shallower, they eventually goes away. In fact, there's 10,000 wells that have been what we call frack mapped using microseismic. And it shows that literally you're not going to get into the groundwater. My biggest disappointment in Gasland was that basically a guy that doesn't understand the industry at all goes and tells a story. And it truly is a story. And a lot of it is fiction. And I can see people falling into it. But as an expert in the hydrology near the surface and deep oil and gas, I have a difficult time going through the whole movie. It really disturbs me, the things that he misrepresents. So this misrepresentation is terrible.
The movie said water contamination was a huge problem. The experts said it was not. I know which I believe. You know, I've never stepped foot in Texas before, but they've been at this gas drilling business a lot longer than we have in Pennsylvania. Our Marcellus Shale area is big, but the Barnett Shale in Texas is one of the biggest gas fields in the country. Probably worth poking around. Soon, I was talking to the pastor of a church right next to one of the Texas gas drill sites. I wish I'd been there on Sunday so I could hear Pastor Bowman preach.
The fears that we actually could have experienced, they've been quelled because of the fact that our questions have been answered. We've seen documented proof that, look, this is the process. Everything that they have shown us, it is just like they've said.
So no problems with noise levels or trucking, neighbors aren't complaining?
We heard all of that, in other areas, but our area, we have not experienced any of those problems. The noise level, every problem that we ask about, they addressed it. Noise was addressed. Pollution was addressed to our liking. So no problems at all. No neighborhood complaints or anything, because they did what they said they would do.
Everyone I talked to said Gasland was full of hot air, very misleading and short on facts. But as a school teacher, I like to hear both sides of every story. So I might as well drive south to Austin and talk to someone from the Environmental Defense Fund. I got lucky and got Jim Marston, the head guy in EDF's Texas Regional Office. He's the director of their energy program. Their website said their mission is to preserve the natural systems on which life depends. Big-time environmentalists. So I braced myself for bad news.
We think natural gas may be a bridge fuel to even lower carbon resources. Of course, natural gas needs to be produced in a way that minimizes environmental impact. Frankly, there's some companies that are doing a really good job and some doing a less good job. Obviously, Gasland has a lot of pretty dramatic events, and I think where I would differ with the folks who work with Josh is his conclusions that those problems were all related to fracking. But most of the problems we see in the natural gas area are due to poor well construction, poor cement work, spilling stuff on the ground. Fracking itself does not seem to have caused a lot of problems so far. That's not to say we ought not to be vigilant, but I think where I differ with Josh is his thinking that it's the breaking of the rocks that cause these problems.
Wow. Seems like yet another expert doesn't agree with Josh Fox. Well, I was in Austin anyway, so I checked out Dr. Michael Weber, Associate Director at the Center for International Energy and Environmental Policy at the University of Texas. Wow, that's one long title. Gasland said fracking used so much water it was depleting water supplies. We don't want to do that, but like every other claim in that movie, it was worth checking out.
A typical well uses anywhere from something like 2 to 8 million gallons of water to do the fracturing process, which is a lot of water. But in the end, the amount of water you use for that well over the lifetime of the well is actually quite low. So one of the things we find is that the water quantity requirements for shale gas production is actually lower per unit of energy produced than a lot of other choices like petroleum or coal or nuclear. The demand for energy is going up faster than the rate of population. And that's an American phenomenon and a global phenomenon. And as we come up with solutions that we think work, we have to balance 3 different priorities. We want solutions that are good from a national security perspective, good from an economic perspective, and good from an environmental perspective. And this is a challenge because most fuels and options only satisfy 2 of the 3. And natural gas historically has been considered here and clean, and it used to be abundant, but then we were worried we were running out, and then we were worried that we would have to import some. But today, with an abundance of unconventional resources in the United States, it meets all 3 priorities. It's one of the few options that actually can. There's a unique opportunity. There's a transformational opportunity for the United States and therefore the world. This is the opportunity, so we shouldn't screw it up.
I was starving and getting ready for a 1,000-mile trip to Colorado. So I stopped and got some good barbecue before hitting the road again.
Bye-bye.
We don't get barbecue like this back home. Hydrofracking sure seems safer than Josh Fox made it out to be. They need to call it something else. That just sounds really bad. Why Colorado? Never been there either. Gasland showed a major flaming faucet there in Weld County, and I figured I could ask some real ranchers with natural gas wells if they were hurting their livestock or their families. I wanted to go right to the same area where Josh Fox filmed the flaming faucet. I found a wonderful, colorful rancher named Chuck Sylvester. He was the former head of the National Western Stock Show in Colorado. His wife Ronnie baked us cookies, and Chuck and I talked about natural gas. We've heard all these horror stories about the Gasland movie and how all this methane gas in the water, and it's all because of fracking and everything. Have you had any experiences with this?
No, I have to say there's always those around that try to instill fear to promote their cause.
So your water doesn't catch fire in your sink?
No.
Have you ever heard of it before?
Yes, but this is way before they ever thought about drilling that particular area. That has been going on before there was ever any drilling, before even people knew what the word fracking meant.
And you haven't had any problems here as far as the water being unsafe for your animals? No hair falling out on the cows or the dog or...
No, people stop by all the time just to tell us how healthy our animals look.
That guy Josh Fox filmed? Chuck said he must have just drilled his water well into a shallow area that already had some methane. That's what Terry Angleter told me too. You can't get much more misleading than that, Josh. It had nothing to do with fracking. Gasland seemed to only have gotten attention because of that flaming faucet. So I figured I needed something just as interesting to draw attention to my little movie. There were a lot of people with natural flaming faucets, but I chose Robert Sandell.
Well, when we first bought this place and moved in, a lady told me don't smoke in the shower. And I wondered what she was talking about.
Has there been any drilling around here?
No, there's no drilling around here, no problems.
So no drilling, no fracking?
No fracking, you can't frack in New York, so...
That's true.
We just have to show you what happens when I light her up here.
Whoa!
That's what happens when you smoke in a shower.
Josh Fox. A little town called Dimmock is sort of ground zero for the anti-fracking crowd. I've been everywhere else. Thought I might as well go there, look them in the eye, and find out for myself how drilling has affected their lives. So Lauren, I heard the water here in Dimmock is really, really bad.
Well, yes it is. I moved in '95 and immediately we noticed some gas in the water, which turned out to be methane, and we always had a high amount of iron in the water as well.
And then I heard that they drilled a well and levels went up?
Yes, there was some methane migration when they drilled the well up on the hill here. They didn't do such a great job cementing the well, and it caused a little bit of the methane down around 1,500 feet to spread.
But the gas company took care of the problem.
Yep, they came back, pumped more cement in last October, and since then the levels have gone down, and now they're back down to normal.
So what's the problem now?
The problem is there's 11 folks that are in a lawsuit with the gas company, and they want $3 to $5 million apiece. Well, since we can say in 2011 that Dimmock's no longer about water, it's just about money, why don't we have a little water and prove it? Here's some consent order water from one of the 18 affected wells in Dimmock.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Dimmock was more or less dead, and the whole Northeast was suffering because there wasn't many jobs around available. The gas companies come in, made a lot of extra jobs for the people that were unemployed, saved a lot of farms around the community, mine included. I owed a lot of money to banks, and the royalties helped pay off the notes.
How are the companies to get along with?
Most of them are pretty easy to get along with. They worked with you pretty good.
I'm glad the wells in Dimmock are okay, but it still sounds a little scary that someone didn't put the right amount of cement in there to start with. I wonder what the real protections are between gas, frac fluid, and our water. I asked someone in our landowner group about it, and he suggested I check with Scott Roberts. He just retired from Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection. I got a hold of him, and he told me some folks were getting ready to prove the strength of a well casing by setting off some big explosives inside of it. He told me to come on down and see for myself, so I figured I'd go check it out.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi, sir. Thanks for meeting me here.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you.
I think we have a real treat for you today. You get to see the part of the well that people usually don't get a chance to see. It's the part that's buried in the ground. And it's the casing, the steel pipes that protect the environment from what's in the well and also protect the product in the well from the elements of the environment. We have one set up over here that you get a chance to see what it looks like.
Now this is actually what it would be like down in the ground.
This is what it would be like down in the ground. You can see multiple layers of protection, cement, steel, heavy-duty pipe, all designed to protect people's water supplies from the gas that would be in the well and when it's in production, or the frac fluids when the well's being completed. The different pieces of pipe all have different purposes. This one we call the freshwater strip. This is what protects people's drinking water supplies from the products inside the well. This one goes down deeper, and it protects from gas migrating in from the rock and coming up the outside. Multiple layers of protection, cement, steel, cement, steel, cement, production tubing on the inside, which is where the product comes out. You can see nothing's going to get in or out of this pipe. Even though it's really sturdy like this, I thought maybe you'd like a demonstration on just how much. We're going to take some RDX high explosives, sort of like dynamite, put it in here, set it off, and just see what happens.
Sounds good. Let's
All right.
do it.
Good. All right, here we go. All right, let's go see what we got.
Great.
Yeah, I don't think it did much, I bet.
Well, it will be interesting.
Yes, it will. Here it comes out. Let's just see. Look at that.
So far, it doesn't look any different.
Like we were saying, that's a sturdy bit of construction there, and I would have been surprised if anything happened to it. See, it pretty much looks the same.
Unscathed.
Unscathed.
Wow.
That's a good example, a good demonstration of why people are safe from the natural gas drilling process.
So much in Gasland is either half true, unfairly presented, or just plain false. And the way he told the story made him seem trustworthy. But Gasland mistakes were piling up. I was beginning to question Josh Fox's motives, which made me doubt the truth of the whole movie. No one said the people Josh Fox filmed were lying, but his movie presented their problems in a way to make it look like natural gas was to blame. I guess flaming faucets gets people to watch your movie, even if the reason they flame is entirely untrue. So many people believed Josh. I was really glad to be going home, and even more happy to be bringing good news. The real truth about Gasland.
Hey, Marco! How was it?
Hey there. Really good.
Oh, missed you.
Hey. Gee, really? Thanks. It's good to be home. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Anything new?
Got all sorts of information.
Yeah.
We tried to call Josh Fox and his producer to give them a chance to speak their piece. We never got hold of them, so I made some lemonade and I talked about what I'd learned. The truth is that Gasland is mostly hot air. Sure, oil and gas companies can do better, but the people I talked to, the scientists and professors and environmentalists, they said they actually are working hard and getting better every day. I wasn't gone that long, but even by the time I got home, I found a site on the internet called Frac Focus, where the industry now is detailing what's in the frac fluid. Anyone can look it up for various states, just like I did. I don't see anything that says dish detergent, but this does say over 99% of the frac fluid is water and sand. And the rest of these chemicals, they're things you already have around the house, like in toothpaste and cleaners, hair color and deodorant, probably even dish detergent. Funny what you can find on this internet if you look long enough. Right here, even Lisa Jackson, the head of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, says it looks like fracking has not caused all these problems that people say it has.
Listen, I think that fracking as a technology is perfectly capable of being clean. I do. But it requires people who are doing it and the innovators who use the technology to take some time to make sure that it's done right. And it requires smart regulation, smart rules of the road. What it doesn't necessarily require, let me be clear in these remarks because I know I'll hear it again, is that all that smart rule of the road setting be done at the federal level. There are states who have been regulating oil and gas development for a long time.
Well, that was good to hear, since we all read in the paper about the EPA saying there might be problems. Then they found that the problems were with their own tests. Improperly tested. Water wells making gas before any gas wells were drilled. Dropping the case in Texas. Methods were questioned. Backs down. Backpedals all over the country. Wow, great news for Dimmock. I ran across an article about an EPA official who resigned after he was caught on tape saying he likes to crucify oil and gas companies. His boss, Lisa Jackson, disagreed.
In no case have we made a definitive determination that the fracking process has caused chemicals to enter groundwater.
Most of the people I talked to liked the gas company people and said they were good neighbors. And the truth is, until solar and wind can help out more, natural gas seems like something we gotta have. The problem with documentaries like Gasland is that people get confused. They're scared. And if you get enough people scared, you can get a contract for a sequel, just like Josh did from HBO. I'm a mom. My husband Phil and I have taught our kids to respect the truth by telling it ourselves.